Hates You.
Hello and welcome to Everyone Hates You, a podcast with me, Michelle Shaughnessy, where we talk about rejections and failures, two things I absolutely love. That's a little sarcasm. Today, I'm excited for our guest, comedian Barry Ferns. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm really excited to kind of talk to you because I know we've talked, outside the pod just a little bit about the stress of the industry and kind of how, rejections and failures just kind of come with the game of comedy.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of paranoid about the idea that you invited me onto this because I've been listening to a couple of the other podcasts and they're great, but I thought there might be a moment of like, we've actually found somebody that everyone does hate. And, we've invited you on because we just want to find out what it's actually like to be somebody that everybody hates.
Does everyone hate you, and how does that make you feel?
How does that play out? And
no, I think for me, the podcast kind of started when I feel like everyone hates me all the time. I'm a weird duck where I've said this on the pod before, where I feel like everyone's hating on me and they hate me. So I'm always in between like those two moods in life. I'm like, I think they're trying to fuck me, and then I'm like, I think they hate me. So that's kind of like how I wander through life. So it was just kind of a no-brainer for me for this to be the podcast, because like, I think some people listened to the first few episodes and expected them to end in a happy way. Yeah. It's not what I'm about. I don't want success stories.
Yeah. You do want a successful. You want the perfect arc. Like you've got to have the moment where you're actually right at the bottom, so that then the autobiography, the biopic, can see you rise to the stardom that you're going to rise from. But at that point where you're at the very bottom, you've got no idea what the outcome's going to be. So you could just be dragging along the bottom like an anchor in life.
I mean,
just chugging along.
I didn't think I was at the very bottom, so thank you.
Well, no, relative to height.
I think I definitely feel like I'm at the bottom.
But this is the thing, right? So the reason I really like the podcast, but it's right for me because I don't think I know anybody else that has failed more than I have. Like I can't, and also the mentality that you talk about there, like my mentality is like, it's not that everyone hates me, it's that the default is that everyone hates me. And I've got to kind of, I think that being a stand-up, what is a stand-up? I think most stand-ups think everyone hates them, because what is stand-up? You're going on stage to prove you're likable day after day.
It's instant gratification. Yeah. And when we don't get instant gratification in other areas of our life, whether that be a TV thing or, any type of success outside of the clubs, we just assume everyone hates us.
Yeah, but it's gratification, instant validation. Mm-hmm. And why do we need validation? Because we think everybody hates us.
We're broken.
We're broken.
We're broken people.
Yeah, but you know what? We are broken people. But I said this was the kind of the running theme in my 2018 show. We are broken people, but we're doing it. There's something really hopeful about making the trauma and the brokenness into comedy. Mm-hmm. Because I know people that make trauma and brokenness into beating their partner, or being kind of really abusive in the rest of their life,
right,
or being really negative, or really, or being just horrible to be around, or just hating themselves in lots of different ways. And so there's something really hopeful about transforming that pain into something that people can enjoy and be entertained by. And so I just think that's a really positive part of hating yourself. So you hate yourself in a really positive way, Michelle. And I just wanted to say, but I think we all do. I think we all do. Like, what is a comedian other than it's trauma plus time, isn't it? Comedy.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's what it is. I mean, I think there's definitely a lot of comedians that should hate themselves a little more than they do. I think you have to find the right mix of hating yourself, but also feeling like you're destined for better things, or we would quit.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to have the hope, the pointless hope, not the pointless hope, the hopeless hope of just like things are going to get better. There's a scene. Do you know the film True Romance?
No.
There's a scene in the film True Romance where Patricia Arquette is being beaten up. She's absolutely by Tony Soprano. He's not Tony Soprano, but James Gandolfini, and he's bigger than her. He's beating her up, and there's a moment where she's been flung around and she's kind of laughing at the insanity of it as he's about to kill her, and she finds a corkscrew on the ground, and like he's towering over her, and she's just holding up the corkscrew like that. And like, just please, without any and I think that's what life is.
Yeah.
Like all you've got is a corkscrew, and she rams it into his foot, and she actually gets the better of him. But that sense of like, she's hysterically laughing all the way through, and all you've got is this small hope that something will go your way, and hope that somebody puts their foot in the way, that you can kind of like find some way out of the bottom.
Sometimes when I watch stuff like that, it makes me wonder how I would be in that situation.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I have some days where I would fight till the bitter end, and I have some days where I'd be like, you know what, just fucking murder me. Like, frankly, I could use an out right now, you know? Like, just let's, you know, or I feel like I would like bring them down and they'd end up being like, it's okay.
Have you
You'll
had,
be fine.
what's the most intense situation like that you've had though? Have you had that in your life where
No.
you've had to make that decision at one point whether to, it's not fight or flight, it's fight or surrender?
I've definitely never surrendered. Like, I've been in situations where I felt sketched and dodgy, and I've just always kind of like stood up for myself. Like, even the other day, this is like a small thing, but I was on the tube and I accidentally bumped into somebody, and I was like, oh, sorry, because I went the wrong way and I went to turn around, and the guy screamed in my face.
What?
He was like, watch where the fuck you're going. You can't just walk like that. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I said sorry. Go fuck yourself. I went the wrong way. What else do you fucking want from me? And then he just walked away, you know?
Wow.
So there was that moment where I was like, no, I'm not going to let this person talk to me like that.
How were you after that? I mean, firstly,
I was pretty upset.
play. Yeah.
Like, I carried it for a good couple days.
Yeah.
You know? And I don't know why.
Because you'd be really adrenalized. Like, you know, like, but we're not meant to know this many people in the world. Like, we grew up, like, we evolved in tribes of 150 people.
Yeah.
So if somebody did that, it would have direct consequences. It's like you are going to get beaten up in the tribe. Like, you're going to get taken out of the tribe. Like, we're adrenalized for, like, there's fight coming, there's danger, there's death. So, like, but I find myself.
But then I wondered, like, what kind of day was he having, you know?
Yeah, true.
Because I do wonder that, because I've had moments too where you overreact to something, but not like that. Like, I'm Canadian, so when someone bumps into me, I say sorry. Like, that's just the way we all are, you know?
Yeah. Maybe, do you think if you'd not apologized, you would have been like, oh, fair enough?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Just like, fuck you. All right. Yeah, okay, fair.
But then there was a moment where I was like, oh, I shouldn't be yelling at a man on the tube because he could just clock me, you know? Like, he could literally just punch me in the face.
And that's the other thing. We've got no idea who anyone is.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you stare too long at somebody and you're like, oh, no, pick the wrong person. Got no idea where this is going to go. Yeah. There's I've never been into a fight. The only time I've ever been punched is at school.
Really?
Enough, never been.
I would have thought, like, being in the comedy scene, you would have had like some problems with other comedians.
I thought you were
going
to go somewhere like I would have thought you would have been.
No, like I just do somebody that didn't get booked enough, or somebody like you banned or something. I would have thought that would have been.
I don't think I've ever banned anyone. Like it's interesting because talking about failure, like the club is for. It's funny because Angel Comedy, like I started emceeing around 2010. And I'd gone bankrupt in 2007. I was homeless for about 8 months. And like I'd been doing comedy for 10 years before that. And all the comedy had put me into debt. And that was like, I was so, and the shows have been good. I got into debt from doing Edinburgh shows, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
And then the club, I started emceeing and it all kind of clicked and it became busy just because it was a free night that was good. And then it was one night a week, 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week. But I don't think I've ever banned anyone from the club.
Okay.
Because like as it started, it's like we're all comedians and the club is, the Angel of anything is like, there used to be a circuit. Like when I did my first gig when I was 16 years old, the headliner was Simon Pegg. And the second gig, the headliner was Matt Lucas. And there used to be this thing in the English comedy circuit where the new person would be on with the headliner. So, and often the new person on, you have no idea what they're like. You just put them on. You know, and that's not in most comedy clubs anymore. You go to the Night 9 Club, you go to the Comedy Store, even the new acts aren't brand new. It's like you go to King Gong for brand new, you go for something else. And like the idea of paid fives or paid tens just disappeared like in the mid 2000s. And I always say what Angel Comedy is like, it's where all the paid fives and tens went, because there are these amazing acts that haven't got a agent putting them on. They haven't got people kind of pushing them. And they're brilliant. And they've been around, some of them have been around for ages. Some of them are brand new. And some of them kind of like just haven't got a place to play to an audience that isn't dead behind the eyes and doesn't want to be there, and it's a hostage situation. So like if somebody at the club, because I'm a comedian, it's like, you know, people have good days and bad days. If somebody's like really nasty and rude, it's just like, well, I don't want to be around you for a year, but email it back in a year or so.
That's fair.
You know, because people have hard times and easy times.
But it is a different space. Like I find at Angel, it's people who go there love comedy. Not that people who go to the store and stuff don't love comedy. It's just different. It's a lot of tourists or a lot of people who make that like their big night out, you know?
Yeah.
And they want to see a celebrity. Whereas I think people that go to like the Bill Murray and stuff, they're not there being like, oh, I hope there's a celebrity here. They just want to see good comedy and have a fun time.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it feel like a very welcoming environment.
Yeah, that's nice. And also I think that everyone that works there loves the comedy as well. And that kind of makes a difference. I think, and, you know, I think, talking about failure, I think a lot of the people that that come through right at the beginning, people are failing a lot, but a lot of the people that really respect comedy and really love comedy kind of get failure. They've failed. They've tried. They've been in their career. Like I was talking to Adam Bloom the other day, who's just released a book. Like Adam, the first time I met Adam, right? Well, not the first time. It was in Edinburgh. It was in like 2001, and I was young. I directed a show at the age of 19, madly. I don't know why. I was with somebody else, but I was talking to Adam and I said, "What's your career? What's your hopes?" And without missing a beat, I was like, "What's your ambition?" He goes, "World fame," like that. Like,
okay.
And he was Time Out Comedian of the Year at that point. He had all of these kind of dreams, and it just didn't work out for him. He never really gelled with television. And I know that he went through a long time, and you'll know this, a lot of comedians like that have been brilliant in their day and like, you know, were the talk of the town. It never quite clicked. They never quite became Michael McIntyre. They never quite became Mickey Flanagan. You know, there's for every tale of people that struggled and made it, there's the tale of 10 people that struggled and didn't make it. And then their fight isn't with being famous. Their fight is how not to be bitter. Like you look at somebody like Ian Stone, who's been going for years, and is the nicest guy.
So nice.
But 15 years ago, I met him. He was as bitter as anything.
Okay.
Because like that was the time, you know, because you can see everybody else coming up. So like it's funny because everyone goes through different stages of like sometimes we can deal with it and sometimes we can't. Sometimes like the failure gets to us and sometimes like, you know what, I'm happy to be able to do it at all. Like you must have that because you know like loads of people from both Canada and like you're touring with Ed Byrne,
yeah, he'll be on the podcast next week. Which will be
amazing,
a really fun episode.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, but Ed would have had those times as well. Like he was quite big, and then had like I always think that you get so much failure at every part of the career. Like even if you're on TV, you like everyone else from the outside looking in thinks, oh, that person's made it, but inside you're like, oh, I've got to make it again.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's definitely a degree of that. And I think I try to remind myself that there's a lot of comics that would love to be in our situation that just work constantly. Yeah. You know, so exactly. I mean, there's some people that I think would look at what we're doing and be like, well, how do you mean you're a failure? Like you play these clubs and you get paid, you know, and you're like, okay, but you reach a point where that's just not enough anymore and you want more and more. And there's a bunch of brilliant circuit comics who don't care for more. They just are happy to do what they love and make money, you know? I'm just not one of those people. Like, I definitely have bigger dreams. And
there's a moment where I was listening to the Bobby Mayer podcast.
That could have been like an 8-hour episode. Bobby came ready to go with so many failures and rejections, and he just doesn't stop. Like he just keeps getting hit and getting back up, and it's I love him for it.
But his life is, you know, has taught him that. But he's such a wise and warm and open human. But there was one moment where he was talking about, and like I really grok this, I really get it. But like our personalities are our personalities. Like the way we're going to deal with failure is the way we're going to deal with failure.
Yeah, that's true.
We've got like, if like I'm always a neurotic, I think everyone hates me. Like however successful I am, I will always think everyone hates me. No matter how well I'm doing, I'll always think I've pissed that person off.
But I also think the reality is, the more successful you get, the more people will hate you because you're exposed to more people.
Yeah, and you'll
there's
see that.
always going to be people that don't like you. Like I hate whenever I see a comedian trending on Twitter, and then I click on the hashtag, and it's just people who hate them or like they're not funny, they shouldn't be on TV, and it's like, well, that's subjective, and I just couldn't imagine hate tweeting somebody like that. But I just think the bigger you are, the more you're opening yourself up for failure and for hatred.
And how would you deal with that? Because like for me, recently, because I've had quite a few mental health problems around kind of, not, you know, feeling really low, really down, and kind of like feeling a lot of dislike from other people, and that's a lot in my own head. But like it's made me actually go, maybe it wouldn't be great if I was better known, because I don't know whether I could deal with
I have moments like that, but the reality is I don't really care what somebody says about my comedy. That stuff doesn't bother me because I know comedy is subjective. Yeah. I actually was thinking of doing a whole episode where I just talk to people who've like sent me hate messages about my videos.
Oh wow!
I kind of want to like zoom them into the show.
Find
out what made them send that and what they didn't like. You know, I'm very curious as to the mind of somebody like that.
What would get to you though?
If somebody criticized my look. So I think
really,
I'm very. That's where most of my mental health issues come from, is feeling like I'm not good looking enough or not thin enough or not, you know? Yeah. And I've
Man, it works for you because you look great.
Thank you.
Imagine you did.
That's the thing.
You look absolutely
that's why I don't want to go to therapy, because I feel like I would just, my looks would fade because I would deal with my inner trauma, and I don't want to deal with my trauma. I just want my tits to say hi, you know? So I think that's something I struggle with. But like and I've talked about that on the pod ad nauseum, so I got to not harp on it too much, but one of the reviews I had.
You used that phrase before.
I should, yeah.
I don't care about my trauma. I just want my tits to stay high.
It's true. So I feel like at the festival in 2022, I got a 3-star review, read like a 5, but I didn't like. the only thing I took from it was that the reviewer called me middle-aged, and that affected me so much that was the one thing. When I look back on my experience at the festival, I don't like. I had some other reviews that I didn't have anything less than 3, but they said some not nice things about my act. But the part when they called me middle-aged, and it had said the nicest things, and then this middle-aged comedian, I can't get that out of my head. That and the fact that I also lied about my age for the whole hour, and I was like, you don't even know my real age and I'm middle-aged? Like, what is happening? So that stuff is what affects me, and that's what I worry about if I ever do make it. Like I look at someone like Catherine Ryan, who I adore and I love, and she generally doesn't give a fuck. Like people say the meanest things about her and send her the meanest messages about her look or about whatever, and she doesn't give a fuck. And I aspire to have even half of what she does when it comes to confidence for not giving a fuck what other people think of you. And I'm just not wired that way.
Yeah, it's interesting, like what gets each of us. By the way, open brackets, I totally think she hates me. I was in an improv group with her, but there's something about her vibe that just goes, because she's kind of quite guarded.
She's very private, yeah.
I read into that abyss. Oh, she absolutely despises me. What have I done? But
I think that whenever somebody doesn't reply to an email, I thought you hated me for like a good few months.
Really?
Yeah, because I sent you an email and you didn't reply, but I know
I get back to all emails.
You get we'll talk after. There's an email you didn't reply to, and I was like, Barry hates me. But then when you agreed to do the podcast, I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't hate me. But I think everyone hates me too. Like,
but the abyss, that's what you fill the abyss with, like the void. It's like, like this Rorschach.
I mean, it's nice to feel I'm not the only one that feels that way in life.
Yeah. But so talking about like what the things that get in our particular craw. So for you, it's looks. Like the thing, because I've got looks. I think that it's the validation of just people going, you're okay. I like, like if somebody doesn't say that, I'm like, oh, they just don't give a shit, or they hate me. But it's coming. We're all going to get old. How are you going to deal with like the beyond?
That's why I need to be rich, so I can just have constant surgeries. Like that's.
So success is a route to kind of playing that.
Yeah, 90% of my money goes to like Botox and fillers and facials and all that stuff, and Ozempic, which controversial, but whatever.
What's Ozempic?
It's a weight loss drug.
Oh right. Oh, so it's the diabetes thing.
Yes, I am addicted to it.
Really?
Yeah. And
you take it?
Yeah.
Oh well. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, I am even nervous to put that out there because I know there's some people that say, you're taking the drugs from people that need it. But at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, you can't really do anything in this world without it affecting other people.
Unless you are physically taking it from people that need it, which I would respect. If you were going to diabetic
type
people.
Type 2 diabetics, throw them down
you know
the
what?
stairs and
Right, just taking them off, just...
For me, like, I found it life-changing because I think I was so obsessed with food that I was constant in a state of worrying about what I was going to eat and how many calories it had and all that stuff. And now I just don't think about it.
Yeah.
I just don't think about it. And it's not as forefront in my life as it used to be. So I do think it is a life-changing drug for a lot of people.
I just think that is so. I've got no judgment on any of that kind of stuff. And also, like for me, weight-wise, I have absolutely got similar things on weight. Like when I was 13, 14, I went without food for days.
Yeah.
I thought I was fat. I wasn't fat.
Yeah.
I remember being bullied. So I was hugely bullied at school.
Me too.
Never had any friends. And like I remember there was one time where I forgot my PE kit. I was about 12, 13. And I just thought, because I just thought I was physically unattractive. And or physically fat. And if you forgot your PE kit, you had to do PA in your pants. That's what you had to do, right? And I remember, like, so the kids, I mean, I was just roundly disliked at school in general because I think at heart, that's what kids do. They find weakness and they double down on it. But everyone kind of started bullying me for having yellow armpits, right?
That's so random.
But because I don't have yellow armpits and I knew and that wasn't my thing, I was like, I was suddenly like, oh, that's fine. Well, like in my head, I was just like, it didn't hurt me because it wasn't a thing that I was worried about.
I think the young people today don't realize how awful it was to be overweight in the noughties. Yeah. It was an entirely different game than it is now. People are much more accepting and will find different things to bully you about.
Yeah.
But
or
that
they
was
think
like,
twice about bullying about that thing.
Yeah. Exactly.
There could be consequences to actually singling somebody out. Whereas before, actually, you were fair game.
And also it was encouraged. It was encouraged in media. It was encouraged in the movies that were popular then. Yeah. Like when I was in college, at that time, it was really rough. I got very bullied in college. Like a group of girls would moo at me every time I went in the cafeteria. Yeah. And I remember I was like, okay, I went without food for 8 days because I was like, that's what I need to do. And I didn't fucking lose anything. Yeah. And I was like, what? I don't know what I thought. I guess I thought I'd lose like 100 pounds in 8 days or something. But like it didn't accomplish what I wanted it to. But it was just such an awkward time when you're in that thing where you're technically an adult, but you're not really. And you have other adults, but they're not really like bullying you, you know? And I just think that is less common today than it was when we were
And there are a lot
young.
more advocates. There's a lot more language around it. Like I you know, people obviously say, oh, political correctness has gone mad, woke culture, all of these kind of things. But what never gets said is that in every culture, every 10 years, or, you know, like you look back to 10 years before and things have changed and hopefully have changed. Like Me Too, before Me Too, there wasn't even a language or vernacular of which somebody could actually say, hey, this thing is happening to me. You know, and if you did, it was often seen as 50-50. Oh, well, we believe, like, there's sexual abuse in my family, like, you know, 2 generations back, but it affected all of...
Well, generational trauma is a thing, right?
And when you had somebody that was a serial sexual abuser, like Jimmy Savile, that kind of era, nobody could say anything. You go to the police, there wasn't any DNA test, there wasn't any way of saying anything, and especially if it was happening in a family, there was no way to report it. But that's an extreme example of the fact that now there's language, you can report it, you can say things, and you might go, oh, there are loads of people calling hooky. There's what's the phrase? Calling crying wolf. Well, actually, yeah, you might say that, but there are lots of people that are actually being heard, and you don't see the people that are being heard. But I just find it interesting that people like to go, you're fat, you're gay, like they would like to have their bants, but they see that as an impingement on their freedom rather than going, oh, there's this person that's really traumatized that might be on the edge of killing themselves, and it's okay to call them fat, you know. And I'd rather be chilled about calling people fat than maybe push somebody over the edge.
Exactly.
Because I give so little fuck about them and so much of a fuck about my... And that's never said. It's just like, don't be such a pussy. Don't be such a snowflake. It's just like, well, you know what? You can say that because you didn't have that situation. Like there's loads of people that don't have trauma in their lives. So if you go, man up, it's just like, well, you can say that because you're all right. You can't say to somebody like, I don't know, let's just come out of a war-torn environment, just like man up. It's just like, you've got no idea what somebody's gone through.
Yeah, I think I definitely have a lot of empathy for other people, which I don't know that I would have had if I grew up popular, you know? I definitely don't, whenever I fight with somebody or get mad at somebody, I'll never criticize someone's looks like that, you know? Like it just, I just wouldn't go there, you know? And I think not a lot of people have that because they weren't raised that way or they never went through it. Or it wouldn't hurt them. And just because something doesn't hurt you doesn't mean it won't hurt other people, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So in terms of failures and rejections, do you have any specific things that stand out that you're excited to talk about? You want to relive some past moments?
The thing is,
it's a safe space. It's not.
I've like, so there's so much. Like I feel like my entire life is a failure. Honestly, I went bankrupt through doing Edinburgh shows.
Yeah, I read that. You wrote an article about it. Yeah.
And I was an impractical guy from a council estate, and like I just failed so many times. I took a show up. I didn't know how to do comedy because you don't, unless you grow up with people that have done it, have modelled it for you. You just think, oh, it's Edinburgh. You go to Edinburgh. I'm getting more and more into debt. Every show was a failure. Every show was like, you know, you get one. The first show, it was a great show. Got one day where we got a nice review, and it was 2 people in the audience every other day, you know, and lost £5,000. And like the next year, exactly the same. And I just like, you know, it's funny because a lot of people would look at Angel because it's become this thing where it's, you know, like it's 50 shows a week, and like you know, it's my emceeing and Katerina Vrana, who was my partner at the time. Our emceeing that kind of made it a thing because people would come back and we really held the night, and people would say, oh, like it's grown from nothing to being what is a cultural institution now. And you go, oh, you're successful. It's like, that's not success. I always wanted to be a comedian. I didn't want to run a comedy club. Like, that's not what I want to do. Yeah, I did it to get stage time. And do you know what? The reason why it's a sign of failure is like I believed in myself so little that I had to build my own stage to perform on. But
wouldn't you think that would be kind of a way of showing that you do believe in yourself a little more than you think?
I think it was a survival thing because I'd gone bankrupt and been homeless. So, and
when you were homeless, I know this is a really ignorant question. Where did you live? Like, I know that that's weird to ask somebody who's homeless, but like...
I broke into places.
You broke into places, okay.
So, and at the time there was something called the Easy Cafe and there was like easy internet, and it was open 24 hours. So I'd often go there at night because I didn't really want to be sleeping anywhere else. I'd also sleep on sofas. I'd also, in the summer, you get a tent. You can you can find patch ground to sleep on. It's actually not that hard to sleep out and about as long as you're up early and you get out. And so I'd moving around, but I also found I had a real eye for council places that were closed or boarded up. So finding a way in, and then as soon as you're in, you can file down the door hinges and take the door out, replace the lock, and you can kind of come and go because people don't pay that much attention.
Yeah.
And it's because it was council. As a private landlord, you could be monitored in some way, but often council is people aren't coming around. So it was a way of being safer. But the winter of 2007, because I went bankrupt as well as Lionel Richie. I don't know if you know this. So I changed my name by deed poll for the show in 2007.
Like legally?
Richie. Yeah.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. It was because it was a fun campaign, like of making everything look like it belongs to Lionel Richie. And a lawyer friend of mine went, I don't know if you can do that behind a show, because it used to be just a silly thing that I did. I'd make stickers say this belongs to Lionel Richie and put it on things, so it looked like Lionel Richie had been buying stuff up. I thought it was funny, and a lot of the stuff is just stuff that I thought was funny. But a lawyer friend said, I don't think you can call a show that. And I said, well, is there any way that it could be called that? And he said, well, if somebody in the show was called Lionel Richie, you could kind of say that. And so I changed my name by default to Lionel Richie. So I went bankrupt as Lionel Richie.
That's amazing.
I flew and banked as Lionel Richie for 7 years.
Wow.
And I only changed my name back 7 years later. But yeah, so, and all of that is just, like, I think it's so heartbreaking because you can do a thing and nobody says, hey, come and I'll ask you to do this, or come be on my show, or come be on my thing. And having to generate your own stage the whole time, or your own opportunities, it's like relentless. And it comes to the point, it comes to a point where you just go, maybe I can't do it.
Yeah, I feel like that too. And there's certain clubs that still don't book me, and I take that personal.
Yeah.
That I take personal, and then I get angry.
Because you can do the job. You're fucking brilliant at the thing. But there's that small voice that's a much louder voice when you don't get the confirmation of the thumbs up of like, oh, you can do it, that suddenly goes, actually, I don't know if you can do it. Because if you could do it, you'd be successful by now. You'd actually have made it by now. Yeah. So the failures kind of mount up, and the longer the failures go on for, the longer you don't make it for, the longer it's like, I'm delusional. I'm mad. I'm absolutely mad.
Are you familiar with Tommy Wiseau?
Oh, the Room. The guy from The Room. I love that guy.
I have moments. So Tommy Wiseau, I'm sure. Luke, are you familiar with Tommy Wiseau? Okay. I hope the viewers are too. I have moments.
Hi, Mark.
So Tommy Wiseau was talentless. I mean,
he's an individual. He's talented by being an individual.
Yes, he's talented at getting money to make a film. That's for sure. So he put up the money. I think it's still kind of a mystery to this day how he got that money, and made his own film to show that he could do it. And then it was a failure. But years later, it became such a cult classic that is he really a failure? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder if I'm like him. Like if people look at me like that, where they're like, oh, I can't believe she's, got money for this show, or like, what is she, I often wonder and worry that that's how other people look at me. Yeah. That I'm just one of those laughing stocks that hasn't quit yet.
Yeah. And would you say though that, so there was in the second Big Brother, there was somebody called Jade Goody, who was kind of a laughing stock in the program, but also became notorious. Well, not notorious is the wrong word, but became very famous because of that part of her personality. So it wasn't something that she decided, but became, UK famous. And there are people like that are almost famous because they're a bit of a joke, like Eamon Holmes or the Alan Partridge effect, or something kind of like unintentional that people enjoy in it. Would you be happy with that?
No. No,
but
I don't
you wouldn't know. I think part of being famous.
Ask me in 10 years. Maybe in 10 years.
I'll take anything. I'll absolutely take anything.
There's this girl, I forget her name. She made her whole life becoming like a living Barbie doll. Like she looks crazy. Like she got her ribs removed. She got like facial surgeries. Like her cheeks are to hair. I often have moments where I'm like, maybe I should just go full that. Maybe that should be my calling.
Maybe change your name to Lionel Richie.
Yeah, exactly. Give comedy a few more years and then just go full plastic surgery mockery where everyone makes fun of online that I have like 1 million followers and get, endorsement deals. I think I'd be more okay with that than I would be as like a Tommy Wiseau type.
But you're
type
too
figure.
self-aware. I think
I'm
Tommy
way
Wiseau-
too self-aware.
Yeah.
I think I'm more self-aware than a lot of other people.
Yeah.
To a fault almost.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my head constantly about being aware,
I think that there's something to be said for how people see you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like you're aware of like what's happening inside. We're all aware of what's happening inside our heads. But so, for example, I am useless with women, absolutely useless. I've slept with 5 women in my life. My mum was super violent to me, and I've just got this idea that men abuse women. Mm-hmm. So I'm really standoffish, right? But if I tell that on stage, people don't like it. They don't believe
Really?
it. Because they see me as attractive, because they see me as confident, because I'm on stage. So I can't talk about that because it's not how people perceive me. And I'm sure I could get into it in a show.
Yeah, I think that's probably the trouble I have too.
But it's that same thing of like you sound that way. You do sound. You sound high status because you talk confidently. You talk brushly. There's the American accent also has that. The high pitchedness. You are definite and certain. Now, so your internal. There's more nuance to your internal thing. But I can imagine somebody perceiving you as being that without any granularity.
Yeah, like I had an interviewer ask me, I did an interview for something recently, and he had talked about my level of confidence, and I was like, I don't have confidence. And he was
but you sound so confident. Like I love the fact that we're finding out that your failure is to seem as lack of confidence as you are.
Yeah, it's
you
true.
You fail to come across as you are in that way, but that's useful for the career.
Is it?
Yeah,
maybe
stage.
On stage, yes.
Yeah.
I think off stage
and off stage,
maybe a little bit, but I do think I think I'm a very humble person, but I don't think I come off that way, and I think that's something I kind of need to revisit because I don't want people to think that I'm the snob or that I think I'm better than everybody. Like I don't really want that to be the image that I'm portraying, but that's just something that I hear all the time. That's just how I come off to other people, and I don't really know how to fix that. I mean, or maybe I am just better than everybody.
Well, I don't. Maybe you are. You know what? That last comment, I think that might be no.
Yeah.
there's that definite failure to get ourselves across. If you are a signifier of certain things, I think that if you're perceived in a certain way, like if you're beautiful, it's very hard for people to see that behind it you might not feel beautiful.
Maybe, yeah.
And no matter how much you talk, everyone's just to be saying, yeah, whatever you say, mate. You've got beauty privilege written all over you. But
I was told that I had pretty privilege and I didn't acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And to that I say, like, it depends on what town I'm in, if I'm being honest. Like in central London, I don't feel like I have pretty privilege, but I've done some gigs in Peterborough and you know what? I definitely felt pretty attractive there. So I feel like it's just all relative as to where you are at that moment.
Man, anybody from outside Peterborough has beauty privilege.
I'm from Peterborough, Canada.
Okay.
It's the same and it's so weird. It's so weird to go to Peterborough, UK and be like, this is just like being in my hometown of Peterborough, Ontario, Canada.
Is Canada? So one of the reasons why I think that I'm one of the few successes in my life was I went to Canada when I was 14.
Okay.
So my Canadian. So I went to Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh God.
Yeah, I know. Every single time I tell people that. Right?
There's a million places you could have gone.
So my aunt came over when I was 13 and said, "Hey, you should come over." And I honestly, I don't know what compelled me to do this, but I did a paper round, 13 paper rounds a week for a year. Saved up the money and then went to visit her. And I went from having no confidence to having confidence because I was special when I was over there. I was an English kid. Mm-hmm. Like my cousin was over there. So suddenly I knew what it was like to get reflected back. Oh, we're interested in you rather than, you're a dickhead we're going to beat up. And so I came back with a certain amount of confidence. But it's so funny because Canada I think there's something similar in Canada. Like as soon as you get outside of like the main cities, everywhere, like in the UK, as soon as you get outside the main cities in the UK, it's like it really is.
It's very similar.
Ugly Hobbit town.
Yes.
Like, what are you doing here, sir?
Yeah.
It really is, and it's really disturbing for like people that come from outside England, come to London, go, it's quite metropolitan, and then they go to Eastbourne and they're like, oh, this is a totally different country. So,
have you ever? So when you were homeless, you went bankrupt. Yeah. Was there a moment where you thought maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, or were you always just kind of determined and was like, no, I'm just going to find a way to make this work?
To be honest, I fight every single morning. I wake up thinking, what am I doing?
Me too.
And the first hour is me just trying to not give up. I'm depressed all the time, and it's because I believe I'm good at a thing. I believe I'm a comedian, and that's what I should be. Because whatever I do, I do it in a funny way. I can't help it. And it's always what I've wanted to do. And it feels to me like the world has said, no.
I feel the same way.
And every single time I try, I might create my own opportunities, but it feels like nobody else goes, oh yeah, we believe in you, come and do this thing. And it's one of the reasons why I'm at pains with Angel. Like, it's a profit share, and also trying to give other people a chance. And like, if
I mean, you couldn't just put yourself on every night for an hour. That would be kind of,
Yeah. Maybe I should do that for a year.
You should try it. I mean, I don't know how well that would do for your business.
Dive the club.
Yeah.
but so it sounds like you can relate to that. It's like, I think, and the longer it goes on, the more that I feel like I'm insane. There's a bit of research. Have you heard about what success is, about grit? There's a bit of research. There's quite a well-known bit of research, or well-studied bit of research about. They looked at all the characteristics, all the different types of people that were successful, and they were trying to find out what common denominators were there. Was it gender? Was it age? When they were born? Where they were born? All this kind of thing. And there was no common denominator. The only common denominator was, once they took out all the variables, of like education, all this kind of thing, was something indeterminate they call grit. And what grit is this idea that you don't give up and you keep going. And like, the people that succeeded had this notion of never giving up. And it's interesting because that's all that people could boil down to. And it's been talked about quite a lot. But the thing that I think is never spoken about is, like, grit is always seen from the perspective of the people that have succeeded, because those are the people that they interview. But I know loads of people that have failed, and loads of brilliant comedians that have failed. And what grit is, staying in the game if you don't make it, isn't grit. It's stubbornness.
A little delusion, maybe.
Yeah, delusion, stubbornness, and it's failure. And it's like, I think the longer you go without kind of making it to a degree where your peers or culture says, well done, we label you as a comedian, or we label you as somebody in the comedy industry that's legitimately an artist within this industry. The longer you go without that, the more it feels like you are the annoying person going, I want to be that thing, and you're not, and everyone knows it, and everyone's waiting it out until you kind of cop on and get your job at Tesco. I really do. It's one of the reasons why I think the podcast is a good thing to talk about, because I think the longer that you go on, the longer you have that, and it's not really spoken about. Like, I know Matt Lucas a bit, and like, when I spoke to him about Little Britain, which was huge, one of the takeaways that he said, oh, we got away with that. Like, he felt like he didn't feel like it was a bigger thing. It was just a bit lucky. But the thing that's never said, when you might be a bit neurotic about your success, is like, yeah, it might not have got the plaudits or might not have got BAFTAs, or might not have got other things, but you are definitely seen within the context of somebody that's a working creative, and you get work and offers from that. And you might not like the work or offers you get, but you are getting work and offers. And I go months without getting offered things, and I do ask. And
you do put yourself forward.
Yeah,
okay.
but it's like, how are you? But even to put yourself forward takes a good amount, and then again, you just got the abyss of like, and these days, unless you got a certain amount of Instagram followers or a certain amount of like exposure, like 10 or 15 years ago, if you'd been on Russell Howe's Good News or a TV credit, you'd get certain jobs a lot easier than others. And so you could think, oh, I've got a TV credit. Where these days, unless you've got more than 30, 40,000 followers on Instagram, you're unlikely to get certain gigs, because it's like, there will be people that, whether they're better at the gig or not in your thing, but as long as you carry on, and you're not getting those things, you think, well, maybe I'm just delusional. Maybe I can't do it.
You seem kind of okay with that, though.
I'm not.
Okay.
Like but like, I've got, I've got ADHD diagnosis about, I mean, I changed my name to Lionel Richie. I've worked on a market. I've done loads of different things. Lived in 40 different locations in my life as well, more than 40 now. I've, had been sacked from so many jobs. If you looked at my career, you'd be like, yeah, you've got ADHD, mate.
Yeah.
But I've got the diagnosis.
Same.
And it's obvious.
Are you on the meds?
Yeah, and the reason I say that about being okay with it is I started on Elvance.
Me too.
And Elvance makes me feel, I can only explain it as it doesn't I just get on with it rather than feeling sad all the time. And so, like, without Elvance to kind of, it's funny because it's an antidepressant for me. Like, it makes me feel.
It is for me too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't feel that way. But I think for me, because it makes me do stuff, even if I am depressed, that I can not think about the depression for a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of what it does for me.
But the depression drags you. You don't, the thing is, that's the other thing, is that people don't realize you're carrying a Sophian boulder that gets added to every single year as you push it up the hill.
I'm also not social, and a lot of people don't expect that of comedians.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of the judgment and people thinking I'm a snob and stuff come from, because I don't really hang out after shows. I mean, I don't drink. I don't like to be around it. I like to just go home and be alone and kind of reflect on that night's set. And so I think there is a degree of that where I'm just not as social as most comedians are, even within their own group or after shows and stuff. So I think that's where some of it comes from, because people don't realize, like, it's not me not wanting to hang out because I think I'm better. It's me just being depressed and wanting to go be alone.
But you're very good one-on-one. Because I reflect back, so I'm the same. I love a one-on-one.
Same.
I love or 3 or 4
I'm
people
good one-on-one or in front of 500 people.
Yeah.
I'm not good in the in-between.
But I also, but I think that's an ADHD thing, because
Maybe.
I think that there's so much stimulation. Like, I've probably spent less time in the Bill Murray, in the bar in the Bill Murray, than most other comedians.
Yeah, I don't really see you hang out there.
It's too much. I mean,
do you drink?
I don't drink, but I don't drink because I just don't. I get sick.
It just makes me depressed. Like, I wouldn't get hangovers, like throw up. I would just be depressed for like 2 days after.
I wish I could take a drug. The only drug that I seem to be able to take is Elvance. But I think heroin might work for me, but I can't really do coke. LSD or grass makes me paranoid. I just wish I could drink, because it looks great fun.
I wish that I had that. I wish I could drink and not have it. I think if I drank, it would just lead to other things, It would lead to self-destructive behavior. And
but
I have
you
enough
did
of
before,
that.
right?
Yeah, I did.
I
I've been sober for 5 years.
Yeah.
So I definitely did. And I had some great times, but it just came to a point where the great times were few and far between, and it was just more sad times.
Yeah.
Or I've had full relationships where I was convinced I was so in love with somebody, and then when I got sober, I was like, I don't even think I liked them. Like, I think the only thing we had in common was drinking and partying, So it really kind of clouds your judgment in that regard. And I think for me, it was tough because when I got sober, there's this degree of like, oh, this is going to be life-changing and I'm going to get everything I want in life now. And then I still didn't get the things that I wanted in life. That I definitely have moments where I'm like, what's the point,
Yeah. And that's because, like, spending so much time on our own also leads to more gap for your head to fill with the paranoid kind of thoughts, or the thoughts.
But I enjoy it sometimes. Like, sometimes I like being at home and crying and being sad. And I know that sounds like fucked up to some people, but I enjoy those moments.
I wish I could cry. I
my
can't.
God, I cry.
I'd love to.
I don't remember a day I haven't cried. And I know some people are like, oh, that's sad, but I enjoy it. Like, I usually start and sometimes end each day with a good cry.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's something that I'll need to work on one day, but
no, I think my life would be better with that. I think my life would be better with that, because it's a release, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ultimately, it is a release.
Definitely a release. But I cry a lot more than the average
I would
person.
masturbate a lot less if I cried.
Maybe I should just masturbate more. Maybe that would help me use the tears as lube.
Both at the same time. Yeah, there's I don't do both at the same time. That's more of a trope, isn't it? That's a crying wank. But the what were you saying there before I went in with the gross response?
About embracing the depression and just living in it sometimes.
Well, but being on our own.
Yeah.
Like I'm happy enough on my own, but everyone does hate me
alone?
for it. But everyone hates me for it. Yeah, I do. I'm lucky enough to live on my own. I did live above the Bill Murray, and so I was just always avoiding
That's just
people.
too much.
Well,
too much comedy? Too much comics? Too much comedy?
It's just that, so I'm always avoiding people, but not because I don't like them, but because I just think I fuck them off, I piss them off.
I think that too.
But then it comes across from their point of view that I think that I'm, like you were saying, like don't like them or another way, but I do. It's just the wrong context for being at the Bill Murray. Like, let's go out for a cup of tea. Let's go out to other things. So it's, I often spend a lot of time, and I work too hard, so it means I don't spend that much time with people.
And I don't really get to know a lot of comedians. Like, I've been one of those people that I would have a very small circle of comics that I would consider friends, because I don't trust a lot of comedians, and I've been burnt in the past before. And because I started when I was a teenager, my whole life was comedy, and I got a point where I didn't want that anymore. There needed to be some sort of separation between church and state a little bit, and I just didn't have that. And so I think moving here, it's been really tough because the only people I meet are comedians. So I don't actually have a lot of friends here that I would consider good friends, and that's been tough.
Yeah, and it really is because, like, I mean, the people that I feel most calm around are the people that aren't comedians or I really know for a long time.
And then the comedians I was friends with here or became friends with here are like fucking famous and killing it. And then there's a degree of like, you feel really like, okay, I'm just the loser friend and you're on TV all the time, you know?
And also it gets in the way of the dynamic. I mean, I found this at the club, like if I'm performing at the club, you can't just be a person because you're like, people have a relationship with you, so it's a very lonely place to be. But likewise, if you're around a famous friend, it's like there is the question that they have because everyone wants something from them. You ever have moments like I found it on events that I have moments where it switches, where I can, like, you know, there'll be like, especially when I first started taking it, where there was the positive feedback loop of presuming the positive outcome.
Yes.
Do you have moments of
I
that?
do have moments.
And I the thing is, it's so frustrating because you have a sense of like what it's like to be everyone loves you.
Yeah.
Because it's self-affirming and it actually creates, it's like what you were saying about being out and social. It's like you can see people whose success is absolutely married to the fact of how social they are and how wonderful, like,
and how good they are at talking to people.
Yeah.
When people talk to me after shows, I get very awkward and I get very like small, and I'm not good at self-promotion. And I mean, I try to be as kind as I can be to like punters and stuff like that, but I definitely get anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm not good at, you know, I see comics that stand there and are like, here's my QR code, follow me. And that makes me want to jab pencils in my eyes. Like I want to be famous enough that I don't need social media ever. Because I do think social media is very unhealthy for me.
Yeah.
But it's just something that we have to live in.
Well, it's a validation circus, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's a constant thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. And for some people, it is going to be.
I feel like people are going to listen to this podcast and feel like we're not okay. Like I feel like I feel like people are going to reach out and be like, "Are you okay?"
I do need to tell you though, the podcast is Everybody Hates You. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
So if anybody is listened to has gone, you know, let's have a listen to a podcast called Everybody Hates You.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they're listening to people talk within the realms of that, and they're questioning the people. I think the lack of self-knowledge review, the lack of self-knowledge review really has to be reflected back to them. Of just like, what have you chosen to do? I mean, we have all done that. We've all gone to the fridge not knowing that we're about to eat something, but like, you know, I think, that's not on us. That's not on us. And I also think that there's a positivity, like we might say that we're, you know, riven by failures and it really rules our internal lives. But actually there's something really positive about the fact that we're doing it. You know, there is something really, really healthy and positive about the fact that, I might struggle to get up in the morning. I might like be constantly have a larger ball of kind of fear of failure or anxiety every single year that I don't kind of get any kind of thing that works creatively. And yet we keep doing it. And yet we keep trying. And the action is hopeful in itself. And the action is therapeutic in itself. And the action is also positive for everyone else because it's not like I won't feel those if I'm not doing comedy. It's not like I'd stop doing comedy and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm great. I love working at Tesco. Like, you know, like, so at least
you'll be the CEO of Tesco within 2 years and have more money than all of us.
Yeah, but imagine that's what
I do feel a little bad because my producer Luke is a comic that's up and coming right now, and I do feel a little bad that he has to hear these stories week after week of comedians talking about how shit it is and how it doesn't get any better and how we hate ourselves. So keep at it, Luke. You have so much fun things in store to look forward to.
I actually thought Luke was paying for this, and this was purely for him, some kind of
his
therapy.
research purpose.
This is every week motivation. Speech. Motivation every week is like, listen, if you don't buckle down and try hard, Luke, this is your future.
And even if you still do, this could still be your future. So Barry, before we wrap up, are there any other specific failures and rejections that you want to talk about and share with a spattering of people that like this podcast?
I don't know. I feel like if you want to see, I don't know. I think I've been pretty comprehensive.
Absolutely. No, you've been great, and I really appreciate it because, like I said, I've had people on the pod that are like, "No, I have so much to talk about," and then didn't talk about.
I did make notes. Is there anything that there was a particular thing that there was something about I was listening to a thing today. Peter Capaldi talking, and he comes from a council estate in Glasgow, and one of the things that he said, I was just like, that's so true, and I bet it's true for Michelle as well. It's like, for a lot of my life, I've been taught and told that I've got to change or do something different in order to succeed, and to it's not right. You know, who I am as Barry from a council estate in Dorset. You know, I don't have a Dorset accent. I don't really talk about that kind of stuff. And I was told not to. I was told to, you know, be what audiences see and what, you know. And I think that some people don't have that. Some people look the way they're, just by coincidence or luck, they look and sound the way that they're perceived. And so you look at Mickey Flanagan, he's 100% himself. And you don't see the fact that it's very easy to accept certain people and for them to kind of get the front foot. And like Adam Hills, even his positivity, that is a, you know, that's a golden road into doing well in the career. And actually, he's great, and he's a great voice. But the fight you have to have when you think that everybody hates you or that you're a failure, those voices are more valuable in some ways because you have to fight to hear them and to say them and not be bitter and find a way to make it heard. And I don't think those are heard enough. It's interesting because there's a big thing at the moment in culture where we talk about, you know, victims and hearing the voices and being diverse. But actually, it's quite hard to hear the diversity of people that don't stand up and say they want to be heard, because you can't go and
good point, actually.
Seek that out. And so actually fighting a fight that nobody's asking you to fight, and it is a struggle to fight every day, is actually, and that the rest of everyone else is going, we don't want to hear from this fight. Thanks very much, we're good. Then, I mean, I don't think about this very often, but listening to that, I was like, and that's what makes this podcast good as well. I think that it's, you know, I don't think people like to talk about the underbelly and the darkness. And, you know, and the times that they feel like everybody else is hating on them and that they're a failure and they will always fail, because it's like really uncomfortable to live there. But going there and then talking about it, like, I think has value, even though it feels shit. But all the things that have value are the things that are hard, right?
You're very intelligent.
But I speak the same language as you. There's everyone else is going, what are these guys talking about? Where are the fucking laughs?
If you woke up tomorrow and your notifications were going crazy and everyone was like, Barry, what the fuck did you do? Why does everyone hate you? Is there a thing in your mind that you think, I would have done this, this is what it was?
I really like that as a question, because I was just like, that's how I feel everyone. Like, I'd honestly just think, that, they found out that they were right to hate me. Because I'm actually, like I was talking about the having not slept with many women, because I think that I'm doing wrong just by existing.
Okay.
Like that is or that, you know, I'm an abusive person just because that's what I was told growing up. Like, you know, you're this, you're that in that environment. So if the notifications are going, I was like, they found out I'm excluded from the world. It's very Oedipal.
So you would just be like, yeah, I was right. Everyone does hate me. You would just embrace it and be like,
but I'd be absolutely the first person to just go, all right, well, Alaska it is.
I love that. I love your determination. And thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we could have talked for hours. And I really appreciate your openness and, you know, your like intelligent outlook on what it's like to feel like everyone hates you. And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks very much.
Thank you. This is Everyone Hates Barry Ferns. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone hates you.